A Marine tried to intimidate her in a bar, unaware she once led classified missions so dangerous her name doesn't exist in official records. Tonight, he crosses a line and learns the woman he targeted isn't just trained for war, she's built from it. Where are you watching from today? Before we begin, please subscribe, so more silent warriors like her can be honored. She sat alone at the far end of the bar, deliberately choosing a seat facing the exit, a habit her body followed even when her mind tried to rest. No one noticed the faint stiffness in her posture, or how her boots didn't quite match the casual jeans she wore. They looked like regular footwear, but they were modified, just like the wristwatch she never took off, just like the person she had learned to become. The bartender glanced over, sensing something in her silence. She didn't drink often, but tonight she held a glass of water but didn't sip. Her fingers traced the condensation as though she was calculating something only she understood. The air around her felt still, as though the noise of clinking glasses and laughter didn't reach her. She didn't want to be there, but she needed somewhere that wasn't her empty apartment. Somewhere with people, even if she never spoke to any of them. Anywhere that reminded her she was still alive. To the rest of the bar, she was only a woman sitting alone. To anyone who truly looked, she was a war no one could see. Across the room, a group of Marines in uniform had gathered, laughing loudly, celebrating, perhaps relieving their own burdens the only way they knew how. One of them, tall, well-built, confident in a loud kind of way, noticed her. His eyes scanned her, assessing. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was ego. Maybe it was the desire to feel dominant in a place where he already felt powerful. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she had done. He didn't know what she carried. He simply saw someone small, someone alone, and assumed that silence meant weakness. He got up, walked toward her, and leaned against the edge of the bar. "You sitting here waiting for someone?" he asked. "Or just lonely?" She didn't look at him immediately. Her breathing didn't change. She simply said, "Neither?" You smirked. "You sure? Pretty dangerous in here sitting alone. Could use some company." Her fingers paused on the glass. She turned to him then, eyes calm, voice controlled. "I'm fine." Something in her stillness irritated him. "You military?" he asked, glancing down at her boots. "Or just wearing those because they look tough?" "No," she said quietly. "I don't wear things for appearances." He laughed, not because it was funny, but because he didn't understand. It was the kind of laugh that draws attention. His friends looked over. The room quietened just enough to feel the shift. A few people glanced at them but said nothing. No one intervened. She remained still. "Listen," he continued, leaning closer, lowering his voice. "We're Marines. Always room for one more at our table. Especially someone like you." His tone hinted at something unspoken. She stared at the condensation on her glass, as if choosing her next words with surgical precision. "There's something you should know," she said softly. "Oh," he said, amused. "What's that?" Her eyes lifted and met his with unnerving calm. "You should be careful with assumptions." He straightened slightly, a flicker of irritation replacing mock humor. "Excuse me." She looked away, non-confrontational. "Not everyone is what they appear." He chuckled again, louder. "What are you going to do? Teach me a lesson." Murmurs rustled across nearby tables. A man with gray hair looked up, recognition flashing in his eyes, then faded. He studied her with a hint of worry. She didn't move. "I don't intend to teach anyone anything," she replied. "I just don't like confrontation." "Then you're in the wrong bar," he said, placing his hand over her glass. "Because I don't like being ignored." Her body didn't flinch, but inside, something shifted. A memory pushed to the surface. A desert night, a quiet operation. The smell of burning sand in Cordit, her team behind enemy lines. The last look of her best friend as the extraction helicopter veered off course under heavy fire. The silence that followed, filled with grief she never spoke of. She blinked it back. The Marine leaned closer. "Come with me," she said. His expression hardened. "You think you can say no to me?" This time, she turned to face him fully. Her eyes were deep, unreadable. Her voice carried no threat, no anger, only truth. "I promise you this," she said. "If tonight ends badly for anyone here, it won't be me." A ripple of unease crossed his features. He hesitated, then scoffed. "Is that supposed to scare me?" "No," she replied, looking back at her glass. "I don't want to scare anyone." Then came the line that would echo through the room long after the night ended. Some people raise their voice. Some raise their hands. "I only raise my skills if I have no other choice." He stood straighter. "What skills?" She didn't answer. This time, he grabbed her wrist. And that was when everything in the room changed. She didn't pull back. She didn't tense up. She simply looked down at his hand, like one might observe a fly landing on their sleeve. An inconvenience, not a threat. Someone stood up from a nearby table, sensing something wrong but unsure what to do. His grip tightened. "You really think you're—" In the time it took him to blink, she was no longer in his grasp. She had moved in silence, using the minimum force necessary, redirecting his wrist and letting his momentum carry him to the floor, face down, arm pinned behind his back. No one saw how she moved. They only saw the result. He tried to struggle but couldn't. She had him locked with precise control, applying pressure only where needed, avoiding injury. Unless forced. He gasped. "What the? Who are you?" She looked around at the now silent bar. Her expression unreadable. Her reply was soft. "Someone who lived through nights worse than this. Someone trained to walk away. You should be grateful I still try." She released him and stood. No one spoke. None dared. The Marine scrambled to his feet, anger warring with confusion. You think you can just—" She stepped closer, without malice, but with finality. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. "I came here to remember I still exist outside conflict. Please, don't take that away from me." He paused and for the first time truly saw her. Not as a woman. Not as someone sitting alone. But as someone carrying something he didn't understand. Finally he muttered, "Who trained you?" She exhaled slowly. "People you will never meet." Something in her voice made even his fellow Marines stand. The man with gray hair at the corner table finally spoke. "You served," he said gently. She didn't reply with words. She simply nodded once, small but significant. He stood, placing his wallet on the table, leaving more than the bill required. Then he said, not to her, but to the entire bar, "Some wars aren't fought on battlefields. Sometimes, the strongest soldier is the one who walks away." The Marine stared at her, no longer angry, but curious. "Which unit?" he asked. She held his gaze for a moment. "Classified," she answered. He blinked. Then, almost quietly, "Special Forces?" She didn't respond. She turned toward the exit, finally picking up her glass, setting it back down untouched. As she walked out, a woman near the doorway whispered, "Why didn't anyone stop him sooner?" No one had an answer. Because sometimes, it takes seeing the cost of silence to recognize its strength. And as she left the bar, she thought of her fallen teammate, of vows made in deserts far away. "I promised I'd only fight when there was no other choice." Outside, under streetlights pooling in cold rain, she paused, and whispered, not to the Marine, not to the bar, but to the night. "The greatest battles are the ones nobody knows you fought." She didn't know the Marine stood just inside the doorway, listening. She didn't see the moment respect replaced arrogance in his eyes. But she would. Soon. And what she didn't realize yet was that before the sun rose, her past would return, not to haunt her, but to prove the strength she thought she had lost. The rain deepened outside. She walked alone, the pavement glistening with fractured reflections from streetlights. Each step felt deliberate, measured, as if every footfall were a quiet negotiation between letting go and holding on. The bar's door closed behind her, sealing away the confrontation she never wanted. Inside, the Marine stood motionless. His heart pounded harder than it had in combat zones. He had been trained to identify threats, to react to hostility, but he had never felt anything quite like the silent certainty that she carried. She hadn't threatened him. She hadn't shamed him. She simply existed with a kind of gravity that forced respect. His fellow Marines approached cautiously. "Who the hell is she?" one asked. He didn't answer. The gray-haired man, who had spoken earlier, approached them. "You boys learn tactics," he said softly, "but she learned survival." They stared at him. He continued, "I've seen that kind of stillness only once before. Kandahar, 2008. Night surveillance op. Not one of ours, not even publicly acknowledged. They sent a woman in first, moved through a village undetected, extracted the target. No casualties. Most of the unit didn't even know it happened. That was classified." One Marine whispered, The old man looked him dead in the eye. And yet here you are, acting as if threats are loud. A silence fell over the group. The Marine who confronted her felt something twist inside his chest. I need to talk to her, he said. No, the old man replied firmly. Not tonight. Let her walk. Why? Because sometimes, he said, glancing toward the door. The most honorable thing a man can do is step back. The words sank deep. Respect begins where ego ends. The Marine lowered his gaze. She reached her car but did not get in immediately. Instead, she stood beneath the rain, face turned upward, letting the cold water trace the lines of her jaw. She remembered sitting on a rooftop in Afghanistan with her teammate, Michael Hayes. The night before their final mission together, he had said, "You and me, we don't get statues, we get silence." She had replied, "Then let's earn it." They had. He died 3 days later when their extraction came under heavy fire. She lived because he made a decision that still haunted her. She closed her eyes now. The bar door opened quietly behind her. "I'm sorry," the Marine said. She did not turn. "For what?" "For assuming I understood strength." She remained still. He continued, voice softer than before. "You didn't hurt me." "That wasn't the point," she replied. "You could have," he admitted. "Easily." Silence. He stepped forward, but remained at a respectful distance. "Why didn't you?" She finally turned, meeting his eyes. Rain streaked down both their faces. "Because if I lose control," she said, "then I become everything I fought against." He swallowed hard. That was when he noticed something small on her wrist, the narrow braided cord of a military remembrance bracelet. He recognized the date etched into the metal. He looked at her, he said quietly. She froze. He continued, "Hayes. Michael Hayes." Her eyes widened, surprise piercing her disciplined facade. She gripped the bracelet gently. "How do you know that name?" He hesitated. "My father served with his unit before he retired." She stared. "He used to talk about him," the Marine continued. "Said he was the kind of man who would choose to die if it meant someone else could live." Her throat tightened. "He did," she said softly. The Marine nodded. "He also said Michael used to talk about someone in his team. Someone who led without needing power. Someone who fought without needing recognition." His voice broke slightly. "He said you were the reason he believed sacrifice had meaning." She looked away, unable to hold his gaze. He said the words slowly, with gravity. "Hay once told my father, the strongest soldier I've ever met is the one the world will never know." Her shoulders sagged slightly, as if a burden she never spoke of was finally allowed to be acknowledged. Something changed between them in that moment. The Marine straightened. "You're not alone." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I prefer it that way, maybe," he replied. "But some fights aren't meant to be faced silently." The Marine pulled something from his pocket, a phone. "I need to show you something." She tensed, but he held it out without moving closer. "It's from the base network. Restricted channel. It went live 5 minutes ago." She took the phone. Her eyes scanned the screen. It was a confidential alert from a military intelligence division. Her name was listed, not her public identity, but her classified call sign. She went rigid. "This shouldn't be active," she whispered. He nodded. "It got triggered tonight." "How?" He exhaled. "Someone at the bar recognized you." "Not me." "Someone who had clearance." She looked back toward the bar. The old man, he was no ordinary veteran. "You're not here by accident," he said. She wasn't asking a question this time. "No," the Marine replied. Before she could speak, a vehicle pulled up quietly along the wet curb. Black, tinted windows, the door opened. The old man stepped out. He approached slowly. She tensed. He stopped 2 feet away. "In 2008, he said, "I was the one who approved your op." Her breath caught. "I never met you," she whispered. "You weren't meant to," he replied. "But tonight, I needed you to know something." She said nothing. The old man's voice softened. "You walked away from conflict to survive, but the world still needs those who know how to end conflict without violence." She shook her head. "I'm not going back. I didn't ask you to." He reached into his coat, pulling out a folder. He handed it to her. Inside it was a photograph, a group of civilians, women and children, a remote village near the border. "These people," he said, "are alive today because of your decision 12 years ago." He paused. "You never knew." Classified outcome. The tears welled in her eyes, mixing with rain. She stared at the image. They rebuilt, he continued. One of them became a doctor. Another became an interpreter for our humanitarian missions. Their survival started with your restraint. Her hands trembled. What you see is failure, the old man said. History may one day recognize as a turning point. She looked up at him. The Marine stepped beside her, not close but present. The old man concluded. Your greatest battle was never the one you fought. It was the one you prevented. She closed the folder gently, then spoke the words she had held back for over a decade. He died believing it wasn't enough. The old man nodded. And tonight, we honor the truth. It was. The Marine exhaled. Across the street, lights flickered on in the bar. People stepped outside, not to see drama, but to witness something they couldn't name. Slowly, one by one, as she turned toward them, they stood still. No one clapped. No one spoke. They simply removed their hats, lowered their heads, or placed a hand over their hearts. Not in pity, not in fear, but in reverence. The Marine stepped forward and stood by her side. The old veteran saluted, not to her uniform. To her integrity, she didn't salute back. Instead, she whispered, "Silent strength is not given. It is carried." A final tear rolled down her cheek. She did not wipe it away. She let it fall. She got into her car and closed the door. The Marine stepped back respectfully. Before driving away, she lowered the window. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" he asked. "For listening." He nodded. The rain softened. She looked at the veteran. "For remembering." The old man replied, "I never forgot." She glanced down at her bracelet. "I'll keep walking," she said. "That's all anyone asks," he replied. She shifted the car into gear. But before leaving, she said one more thing. "There are soldiers who return from war and feel lost. Tell them this. They are not broken for surviving. They are brave for continuing." She drove away. The street remained silent for several seconds after the tail lights disappeared. Finally, the Marine spoke. "Who was she?" The veteran looked at him. "A reminder," he said softly, "that not all heroes wear what they've earned. Some people raise their voice. Some raise their hands. I only raise my skills if I have no other choice. Respect begins where ego ends. Your greatest battle was never the one you fought. It was the one you prevented." There are soldiers who return and feel lost. They are not broken for surviving. They are brave for continuing. If you are still here, thank you. There are real men and women who walk among us bearing silent wars within them. They don't look for recognition. They don't ask for applause. They simply hope the world is better than the one they fought in. Tonight's story is fiction, but its truth is real. If you've ever served, supported someone who did, or simply believe in dignity over force, tell us in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? Subscribe if you stand for those who fight battles unseen. Like and share to honor silent heroes everywhere. Some warriors are loud, others are legendary in their silence. Which kind are you?